It was a lazy summer day in the town of Bankhead. Oscar, Amelia, and Marcus decided to spend the afternoon down by the lake, where the water and the mountain breeze were sure to cool them off from the summer heat. On their way over to the beach, they saw a dog running around and playing in the water. Oscar shouted, "That's Tony's dog." "You're right," said Marcus. "That dog is always getting out. I think it goes on more adventures than we do." They were right. It was Tony's dog. Tony was the owner of the junkyard, and his dog always snuck its way under the fence and got into all sorts of mischief. "We better try to get him and take him back to Tony," said Amelia. "That dog is trouble," she said. Just as the children tried to get closer to the sneaky dog, it thought that they wanted to play a good game of chase, so it took off like a bolt of lightning into the woods. "Quick, we better see if we can catch him," said Marcus. The children ran into the woods, looking to catch this elusive dog. Before they knew it, they were in a part of the woods that they had never been to before. "Look, over there," said Oscar. "The dog is sniffing around that old wooden building." "That's no building," said Amelia. "That's an old abandoned train caboose." "I can't believe we've never found this before," said Amelia. "Well, I guess the dog knew where it was," said Marcus. They made their way over to the old caboose. It was dark and a little spooky. They peeked inside and saw a lot of cobwebs and old junk lying around. "This would make a great clubhouse," said Oscar. "We could get it all cleaned up and painted, and it will be as good as new," he asserted. Marcus and Amelia agreed, but they also knew that they needed to get Tony's dog back to the junkyard. "Let's take the dog back to Tony and then figure out a plan for our clubhouse," said Oscar. Tony was happy to see the children, and he wasn't all that surprised to see them returning with his dog. "That dog," he said. "Always looking for an adventure," said Tony. "Just like us," said Amelia. "I guess that's true," said Tony. "Where did you find him?" he asked. "He led us right to an old caboose that was abandoned in the woods," said Marcus. "We're going to turn it into a clubhouse. Maybe we can clean it up so the caboose looks as good as it did when it was brand new." "But we don't know what it even looks like inside a caboose," said Amelia. "Well, I guess you'll have to do some research," said Tony. "What's that?" said Oscar. Research means to study or investigate something to find out all about it. Maybe there is a book at the library about cabooses that would allow you to do your caboose research and learn all you can about them, said Tony. "That's a great idea," said Marcus. "Let's get to work and do our research on train cabooses." As the children walked to the library, they waited as a train pulling boxcars stopped at the hotel for a break and to get some lunch. "Look, a caboose," shouted Amelia in excitement. "There's our research right there." The children rushed over, just in time to see the conductor, Calvin, hopping aboard the train as it was getting ready to resume its journey. "Good afternoon, children," said Calvin. "Why are you rushing over to see me today?" he asked. "The caboose," said Oscar. "We're doing some research." "Research for what?" asked Calvin. "We found an old caboose in the woods, and we want to clean it up and turn it into a clubhouse," explained Marcus. "The only problem is that we don't know what it looks like inside a real caboose." "Well, we do have a little time while we wait for the locomotive to fill up with water for the boilers. Why don't you come on in, and I will show you all you need to know," said Calvin. Calvin brought the children aboard the caboose. Amelia used a pencil and paper to make a lot of notes as part of their research, and so they could take what they learned and figure out how to fix their clubhouse caboose. He explained all about how a caboose was a little bit like a small house for the train workers. There were beds and a small kitchen. There were cabinets for storage. Calvin explained that the train workers would make any needed repairs to the tracks, operate the switches when trains had to change direction, and shunt train cars, which means sorting out the train cars into their position in the train. When they had done all of the research they needed, they thanked Calvin and said goodbye, just as the train was ready to leave. "Thanks, Calvin," said the children in unison. "I think this is all the research we needed." "You're welcome, children. I would love to see how your Caboose Clubhouse turns out when it's all finished," said Calvin. "Sure thing," said Oscar. "You can be our first visitor." "That sounds great," he said, and waved to the children as the train's whistle blew and it began chugging down the tracks. The children rushed back home, grabbing everything they needed to fix up their clubhouse. Marcus found some leftover paint. Amelia borrowed a toolbox full of tools and nails. Oscar found a bucket and a broom. The children spent days cleaning up the old caboose. They cleared out all of the old junk. They put on a new coat of paint and nailed down any loose boards. They even used some old crates as furniture. During the building process, the children faced challenges and made mistakes. But instead of getting discouraged, they embraced the opportunity to learn and improve. They discovered the importance of patience, perseverance, and the joy of learning new things. "Research is fun. There's always things to learn, to test, and to figure out the answers to," said Marcus. In no time at all, and with all their hard work, their clubhouse in the woods was finished. "Let's go find Calvin," said Oscar. "We promised he would be the first to see it." "Great idea," said Marcus. "I think the afternoon train is coming soon. With any luck, we will get there in time to see Calvin." The children rushed into town. The train was stopped, filling its tanks with water. Sure enough, there was Calvin, waiting patiently and making some adjustments to the brakes on the caboose. "It's all done," said Amelia to Calvin. "Can you come over and see our clubhouse?" "I sure can," said Calvin. "A new crew is just arriving to take over the train operations. Let me hand things over to them and we can be on our way." Calvin finished up what he needed to do and hand the train over to the other workers. They waited for the train to depart before starting off to see what the children had done with their clubhouse. Calvin could hardly keep up with the children as they made their way down to the lake, into the woods, and to the old caboose. "Here it is," said Amelia with pride. "Well, let's have a look around," said Calvin. The children showed Calvin around their clubhouse. It was just like the inside of the caboose they had seen. Calvin was amazed by the children's creativity and resourcefulness. "Wow, it looks just like my caboose," said Calvin. "That's right," said Marcus. "It's no wonder it looks like yours. We did our research in your caboose," he exclaimed. The children felt proud and happy to have made such a special place for themselves, and they continued to play in the caboose for years to come. From that day forward, the children continued to explore various topics, never losing their thirst for knowledge. They understood that research was the key to unlocking new worlds of understanding. Whenever they saw a train caboose passing by, they smiled, knowing they had discovered a treasure hidden within the world of trains, the treasure of curiosity and the joy of learning. Cabooses were used at the end of freight trains for over 100 years. It was only about 40 years ago, since cabooses were no longer needed, newer technology. Cabooses provided shelter for workers who traveled with the freight trains. Look how cozy it is in this caboose. There are lights, pictures on the wall, and a stove so that the conductor can enjoy a hot cup of coffee. If you're lucky, you might even come across an old train caboose that you can explore and imagine that you are a train conductor looking out the rear of your caboose as you travel down the tracks.